Typhoon Gaemi has now reached mainland China after smashing into Taiwan and the Philippines earlier. The powerful storm brought strong winds and rains to the island nations, killing at least 21 people in the Philippines and 3 in Taiwan. These pictures show flooded streets south of Taipei, where people had to be rescued in rubber boats.
A senior member of Sudan's government has dismissed international warnings that famine is looming as a result of the civil war. The minister insisted the country would not accept international pressure to open border crossings for aid deliveries to areas controlled by the rival rapid support forces. Last month, a UN-backed study found that half of Sudan's population of 50 million was suffering acute hunger and 14 areas were at risk of famine. The Canadian Prime Minister has praised firefighters for working hard to save lives and homes from a massive wildfire in the western province of Alberta. Over 400 foreign firefighters from Australia, New Zealand, Mexico and South Africa had joined the efforts to control the blaze. The fires are thought to have been sparked by a lightning storm and fanned by record-breaking strong winds.
Now, the UN Secretary General says humanity is facing an extreme heat epidemic after global temperatures again broke records this week. Researchers at the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service said that Sunday, Monday and Tuesday were the 3 hottest days recorded on Earth. Guterres is calling for action to protect vulnerable people from the impact of heat waves that's triggered extreme weather events. Wildfires spread across northern California and western Canada on Thursday, forcing thousands to flee as firefighters fought the blazes. In northern California, more than 71,400 acres of land have been burned. A man suspected of starting the fire was arrested after he was seen pushing a flaming car into a ravine Wednesday afternoon. In Canada, a wildfire is ravaging the historic tourist town of Jasper and the surrounding national park. Roughly 25,000 people have been forced to flee. And during a tearful press conference, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith said about 30 to 50% of buildings in Jasper may have been destroyed.
Let's talk about the most intact and extensive bog system in the world. There's been a 40-year campaign, and a part of Scotland could be on the verge of being awarded World Heritage status.
Let's go to a climate editor, Justin Roller, who's there for us this morning. Morning to you, Justin. So, this phrase, to be honest with you, I had never heard the phrase before, Scotland's flow country. Can you explain that to us? Because I'd not heard that phrase before, but that's the place you're in.
Yeah, the flow country is this vast network of blanket bogs all across, stretching right across the top of Scotland. It is truly, truly vast. It's about 4,000 square kilometres, so what's that, like 3,000 square miles? Something 1,500. Like 1,500 square miles, so it covers an absolutely huge area, and it's actually, it's a Norse word, it's not actually flow. You were saying it's...
Flow.
Flow, so it's from an ancient Norse word, so really, really old bog ecosystem. And Pete Gilbert, you run the RSPB's reserve here. It's the biggest reserve the RSPB has. What is so special about this blanket bog ecosystem?
Well, the flow country peatlands, as you say, 1,500 square miles, really vast blanket system that encompasses the landscape. It's incredibly rich in its biodiversity, from plant and animal species that thrive in what can be quite a hospitable environment. Believe it or not, this is our summer. So we're talking things like hen harrier, dunlin, golden plover. We have approximately half the UK's breeding population of common scoter in the flow country here. So really
I've never even heard of what's a scoter?
It's a duck species, it was called common scoter, but not so common in the UK, but does reasonably well in the flow country up here.
And what's amazing is this bog system is built up of these tiny mosses, and in fact I think there's 34 species of sphagnum moss and 29 of them are represented here in the flow country. How does that work? How does it work?
That's right, so really rich in terms of our biodiversity species that we have here for plants. Well, the sphagnum mosses in themselves really rich in holding water. They waterlog the surface, they create an acidic environment which is really good for restoring decaying plant material so it doesn't completely decompose and get stored up as peat.
And then you get all sorts of there are these amazing carnivorous. You've actually got 3 different carnivorous plants here, haven't you?
Yeah, sundew species that we have here in the flow country which trap midges on their little nodules that are...
Little sticky kind of nodules they've got, and there's other ones as well. But it takes a long time for this peat to build up, doesn't it?
That's right, yeah. So it accumulates about 1 millimetre a year, we're talking.
1 millimetre a year, a centimetre every 10 years. That means a metre of this stuff is 1,000 years old.
That's right. So when we're looking at areas of the flow country which are 6 to 10 metres deep, that's 6 to 10,000 years of peatland accumulation.
And that's why this place has another remarkable property. It's also a really important barrier against climate change, as I discovered with your colleague Millie. Take a look at this. These peat bogs are also an incredible store of carbon, aren't they, Millie?
They are. They're amazing. In the flow country alone, we have more than 400 million tonnes of carbon stored here. An incredible amount.
So 400 million tonnes, just to put that in perspective, is very roughly twice the amount of carbon stored in all the trees in the UK. And we could show you why, can't we, Millie? Look at this. Whoa! Look at this. We'll show you why there's so much carbon. Just look how deep this bog is. And this isn't even... Whoa!
Here we go.
6 metres. In some of the remote parts of the bog, the peat is 10 metres deep, isn't it? 10 metres deep.
Now, yesterday we featured the bid by an area of peat bog in Scotland to get World Heritage Site status, and now it's been granted. It's the first time that peatland has been given that status. The flow country is a blanket bog supporting a range of wildlife, including golden eagles. It also stores about 400 million tonnes of carbon.
One person has died and another has been seriously injured after a fire at a fireworks factory in Bulgaria. The fire caused a number of explosions in the warehouse, thought to be the equivalent of 2 tonnes of TNT. 2 other men remain missing. Thousands have been ordered to evacuate in northern California as crews battle to contain wildfires. Authorities say the fires, which tripled in size in one day, burning more than 250 square miles near the city of Chico, was started when a burning car was pushed into a gully. A 42-year-old man has been arrested. Well, to more wildfires now in Canada, where thousands of people have had to flee their homes in a resort in the Canadian Rockies. Scores of fires have been broken out across the country. In Alberta alone, there are 173 active wildfires, with 51 of those said to be out of control. One of the worst, though, was in Jasper, where 25,000 people have been forced to evacuate, including many tourists. Flames ripped through the resort town, leaving widespread destruction. Martha Fairley reports.
Homes and businesses burned to the ground, streets reduced to ashes.
There's Mum and Dad's house.
These are some of the first images to come out of the picturesque Canadian resort of Jasper in Alberta since it was ravaged by a massive wildfire. Its destruction has shaken those who know it well.
For many generations, the town of Jasper and the parks surrounding it have been a source of pride. With some of the most beautiful scenery in the entire in the world. Although those of us who experience Jasper as visitors can't imagine what it feels like to be a Jasperite right now, we share this sense of loss with all of those who live in the town, who care for it, and who have helped build it.
25,000 people, most of them tourists, were evacuated from the historic Rockies town as a wildfire started by a lightning strike on Monday gained strength. By Wednesday evening, it was racing through the national park towards the town.
Fire in Jasper. High winds, rain and fire.
Winds fanning the flames. The blaze advancing 3 miles to the edge of town in just 30 minutes, forcing firefighters to withdraw as conditions became too dangerous.
Alberta currently has over 170 active wildfires burning throughout the province, with more than 50 of these classified as out of control. Many of the wildfires we're seeing at this time of the year are lightning caused, and we unfortunately can't control the weather. But what we can do as a province is exercise extreme caution.
The arrival of rain has now helped contain the worst of the fire. Authorities say it's too early to know how much damage has been done, but it's estimated between 30 and 50% of Jasper has been destroyed. Martha Fairley, ITV News.